With me today is the man with the inside scoop into racing, the host of the only podcast racing fans should be listening to. It's the legend ZB from ZB's Horsepower Talk, the victory lane of racing podcasts. ZB is short for Zach Brown, but he doesn't want to be confused with that less popular Zach Brown, who I think's got some kind of band or something, which is very nice of ZB to think of others. He's such a gentleman. Welcome to the show, Zach.
I appreciate you having me.
Zach, tell us just a little bit about your show and where people can find it.
Yeah, so I started the show January of 23, so about a year ago now. I did it because my background in racing, my grandfather's in a dirt racing hall of fame,
Nice.
and I wanted to basically have something where I could have him out there forever, because he doesn't do a lot of stuff with media, and he'll be 90 years old this year. But he'll do anything for the grandkids. So to have some sort of interview and everything, have him out there and it basically immortalized on the internet, that's what I wanted to do. And after that, it just became a hobby of mine, a lot of fun, been able to have a lot of guests on. So we talk about, we do weekly breakdowns when racing season's going on. And we also give previews. I do it with my dad. My dad's a former crew chief in dirt racing as well. So a little bit of everything. We go dive into drag racing, NASCAR, and dirt racing. One of the few podcasts that actually goes through multiple different angles of racing, not just one specific genre of racing.
Right. We're going to get into some of those too. All right. So every good podcast has a sponsor. And so today's podcast is sponsored by Cheerwine, the official drink of NASCAR. No, it's not really the official drink of NASCAR. That's Coke. But Cheerwine, if you're listening, I would definitely appreciate you sponsoring this podcast. That's one of my favorite drinks right there, man.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's a true Southern drink. It's where the racing began. So you might as well have some Cheerwine and stuff.
That's right, man. All right, Zach. So on this show, we always talk about how people got started doing the thing they love to do. So let's start with you. How did racing? How did you get racing mixed in your youth? When did that start to become a thing for you?
Well, like I mentioned, my grandfather, he's in the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, which is winged racing in the dirt racing world, for layman's terms, I guess. If you're not familiar with it, it's the world of outlaws, those type of race cars. And I'm literally born into it, and I grew up in it. And when I was probably a month old at most, my mom brought me to my first dirt race. Most babies had to wear like the ear mufflers and everything because it's loud.
Yep.
I didn't have to do that. I would just go right to sleep with the noise of the motors, apparently. And just then, I mean, it was just a lifestyle we had. Everybody in that dirt racing community in southern Pennsylvania, it's called the PA Posse. So it's not a full-time gig like World of Outlaws, and it's different. Right. People have their own jobs and stuff, but when it comes Friday night, Saturday nights, you're at the dirt track. You are there to have a lot of fun and maybe earn a little bit of cash. And with my dad being a crew chief on a bunch of sprint cars throughout my childhood, I got to witness that firsthand. And we had a garage at our house. We built engines from the ground up. Wow. And it's been a family business since... My grandfather's done it since the early 50s, and my dad was doing it throughout the 80s, 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, that sure sounds like, man. That's quite an impressive little lineage you got going on there. Who, besides your grandfather and your dad, who were your racing influences growing up?
Well, ones that I haven't met, obviously, we were huge Dale Earnhardt fans. And that was actually so influential that the year that Dale died at Daytona, that was the same year my younger brother was born. Well, my brother's middle name is Dale for Dale Earnhardt. So if that tells you anything about our family, there's that. And my mom was always a Jeff Gordon fan, and I came to respect him towards the end of it. If you're an Earnhardt fan, you didn't like Jeff Gordon, but you came to respect him.
I was about to say that seemed like those were kind of rivals there.
Yeah. You came to respect him there. And just a bunch of the local drivers we had that raced with my dad. My dad worked on the cars and stuff. Anybody that came to the shop, all those local guys, obviously huge influence. I got to sit in their cars. I used to help out on
Yeah.
some of the sprint cars, and just all that. That was obviously huge, influential in my childhood.
So what's your favorite kind of racing for
So
you personally?
yeah, so I'm obviously very biased. Based on what I grew up in dirt racing and the local tracks with the dirt
Yeah,
racing and the
yeah,
sprint car racing. That obviously that's my favorite, and that will never change. It hits home. Um, but obviously, I follow NASCAR a lot as well. So between sprint cars and NASCAR, those are obviously my favorite, my go-to. But I enjoy NHRA drag racing as well, especially in-person drag racing's like none other. You don't
yeah.
understand how much horsepower those
I
drag
bet
cars have.
so.
And in IndyCar racing, obviously, I've gotten more and more into it as I've gotten older. Nothing I really watched a whole lot besides like the Indy 500 growing up, and then as I got older, I
Yeah,
started getting more into that. But yeah, sprint car racing for sure. And there's nothing like when you have a little small team that has a trailer you bought from Billy Bob's down the road,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
go
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and you show up to the track and go and get these multi-million dollar race teams and everything, and you end up beating
Yeah,
them. So there's nothing like that
right.
feeling. So,
Yeah, I bet that's awesome. You've what's your favorite kind of track? You've mentioned track a whole bunch. What's your preferred track to watch?
the track that I grew up going to on Friday nights, and it still holds a very special place in my heart. It's called Williams Grove Speedway. It's in
Yeah,
Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. So it's the south central Pennsylvania. If anybody knows, geographically speaking, it's about 30-45 minutes south of Harrisburg. It's such a historic track, and it's if anybody knows Martinsville, which is an asphalt track that NASCAR races on, it's like the dirt version of that. It's almost like a paperclip, and you've
yeah,
got like a wide turns 1 and 2. It's got way more banking than turns 3 and 4. 3 and 4 is almost flat, and it's a very tricky track. And you don't just go there on your first time and win. It's well, there's a number of drivers that can do that, but in general, um, and it's track and it's the environment there is like none other. There's an infield, and then there's a place that's literally called Beer Hill. So you can't tell me
yeah.
that rednecks are just in the South. There's definitely them
No,
that
they're
are
the
in
rednecks
the
are
North.
everywhere,
So
man.
yeah, and there was a
They just
driver
got a
last
name down
year.
here.
Yeah, then there was a driver last year. He races all the National Touring Series, and one of the fans threw a beer over the fence to him, and he shotgunned it. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Right.
That's what it's all about up there. So that track for sure is my favorite track. There's a few of dirt tracks up there, like Port Royal Speedway. It's a little more north of that track, and that's a great track as well. But just with the I guess nostalgia as much
Yeah.
as when I was a kid, I always went to the infield at Williams Grove. It was just an awesome track.
Now I got to tell you, my family, we're from California, and
Hmm.
occasionally, I'm not sure what you'll have to help me know what the right terminology is, but there was a track there, and it was just these two cars lined up, and then they just raced against each other. Right, the light would
Okay,
turn green, and they went side by side,
yeah. So
and
that's
so
yeah, and that's the drag racing part, and that's
gotcha.
obviously awesome.
We saw
California's got a
that
bunch of those tracks.
a couple of times, but what I got a core memory of, man, is we moved here to North Carolina, and I don't know. I guess we were on vacation. I don't remember what it was for, but we were in Virginia and we went to a dirt track racing. I guess my parents knew somebody that had a car or somebody that was in it, but we went down into the I'm not sure what you call it, but the I would call it the pit area
Hmm.
of where all the cars were, and it
Yep.
was just bonkers down there. And my dad was like, "Don't you repeat any of this to your mother."
Yeah, it's
It was crazy down there. And then the race was going, and the cars had this like this big fin on the back. It was almost like a Jeep with a big fin on the back that was that kind of tall, and they ran
Yeah.
around this dirt track. Man, and this car went like straight up, headlights flat to the ground, all straight up, and did a spin and then like fell down. And the guy crawls out and he throws his arms in the air, man, and everyone starts cheering. And it was just like, I can't believe everybody left that place alive by the time the race was over. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
there's a it takes a unique person to drive any type of dirt race car. So
Yeah.
I've always had respect for them, and it's a different kind of chaotic and crazy, if you will, at those tracks.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, though. But yeah,
It is awesome.
nuts, man. Um, all right. So, what kind of style of racing do you think you tend to follow the most?
Um, the easiest to follow in general, and it's what I focus the podcast on. That's what we always open up with. It's the biggest one there is in the world is NASCAR. So,
Yeah.
um, and that and people always talk about, well, Formula One is going to surpass NASCAR. Well, the ratings came in, and it's NASCAR's like double every single race
I was
over
going to
Formula
say, is
One. So.
NASCAR the number one in the world? Because I don't have an
Yes,
idea
yes.
if it is or
So
not.
and yeah, so that's the one I follow the most. I get updates through everything. Dirt racing, it's a little harder to find the races for it if you don't have the certain streaming platforms, because they're not on ESPN, they're not on
Right.
Fox, they're not on anything you can just do a quick click on, which I wish they were. It would, and NASCAR actually needs to go to some sort of streaming like ESPN Plus. If they were able
Yeah.
to figure that out, it would probably help tremendously. NASCAR's kind of gone away from local networks and gone to things like Peacock that nobody has,
Right.
and just things like that. Well, everybody's got like Hulu and ESPN and stuff.
Yes.
If you have kids, you have that, and you have Verizon, you're gonna have that the whole
The
ESPN
whole
Disney
bundle
Plus
there. Yeah.
bundle
Yeah. Yep.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We used to have
So
that too.
yeah, and they're always working on new TV deals, and it's all
Yeah.
confusing. I think in next year, or the year after, they're going. One of the series is going to the CW. I don't even know what that
Wow.
is.
Right.
It's
The
it's
they're
things
trying to
like
stay
that. But
relevant, is what they are. The CW is.
yeah, but it's as big as NASCAR is, though. It does make it very easy to follow along because it shows up on all of your like
Yeah.
ESPN notifications. It'll show up there. Dirt racing hasn't gotten to that point yet, so it can be trickier to keep up with that. If I didn't have a podcast, it would definitely be harder to keep up with that. And
Yeah.
having that podcast, I'm able to zero in and actually get it out there to people and talk about it. And that's what the YouTube channel is. Everybody's got YouTube, so
Yeah.
that's what that is too.
Now that goes right into my next question. I
Hey,
was
look
about
at
to
that.
say, I am like, Joe Smo racing fan, right? So the
Yeah,
only thing I get is what ESPN usually throws back at me, which is NASCAR.
yeah.
So I get updates on NASCAR. Uh, and sometimes, the European races go in here and there. What kind of style of racing do you think should get more coverage
I think
that doesn't?
that, well, obviously I'm going to the one that doesn't get nearly as much, but it is getting improving because there's a driver by the name of Kyle Larson, and he grew up in dirt racing, actually in California, and so he's a NASCAR Cup Series champion, and he has started a new series called the High Limit Series. Started last year, will merge with what's called the All Star Circuit of Champions this year. So he's trying to get that exposure out there with dirt racing to make it so people can see it more often. And right now, that series is exclusively on Flow Racing and Flow Sports, and
Yeah,
Flow has
yeah, yeah.
actually taken off the last few years. So that is definitely improved. The other series, that major series in sprint car racing, is called the World of Outlaws. And the World of Outlaws, they are exclusively on Dirt Vision. And if you're a dirt fan, you're not likely going to get both subscriptions because that you're just
Right.
going to start. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you got to choose which one you want. And that's the thing that kind of sucks, is that you have to, and it's not the cheapest thing. It's like $300 a year or something
Yeah,
to
that
pay
flow
for.
marching is like $40 a month or $30 a month.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, and so if there was a way they could have a deal with whether it's ESPN or Fox Sports or something to get that out there,
yes,
I would love to see that exposure because it is great racing and people don't realize how much different it is from just your normal asphalt racing where people are like, well, they're just going in circles. Well, they're literally turning right to go left. So Lightning McQueen was
yes,
right on that. So
yep,
and it is insane, and I wish a lot more people could see it because there's nothing else like it. But I
yeah,
also would like to see there more of drag racing exposure too.
yeah.
The
I didn't
NHRA,
even know that existed. Dirt
yeah,
drag
so,
racing.
yeah. So it's they have 4 different series. It's Top Fuel Dragsters, which all the Top Fuel Dragsters, and it's called the Funny Cars. They are nitro cars, and they
Gotcha.
make about 10,000 horsepower each,
Wow,
and they will go 1,000 feet in 3.6 seconds around there.
mm,
So
that's crazy.
it's amazing to be
Yeah,
at the track for those. The downside is NHRA doesn't do the best job at having good things on their social media. It takes them like a
yeah,
day
yeah,
to post anything. You can't ever find it on TV because it's hard to do live events with drag racing. Those things take a lot of time, and
yeah.
it
There's a
takes
lot of
about 10
downtime in
hours to do an
between
event.
races, right?
What's that?
There's a lot of downtime from one race to the
Yeah,
next, isn't there?
yeah. So
Yeah,
they're literally rebuilding the engines after every single run
yeah,
because they only need them to last 3-4 seconds, and then
yeah.
that's all they need them to do. So they try to do everything they can to get through that. They'll rebuild it and get it set up for the next one.
Wow.
And yeah, it just takes time. If there was a way for them to figure out how they could work with a TV deal, that would be beneficial too. So yeah, those are probably the 2 sports I would like to see get a lot more exposure out there because
Yeah.
they're really exciting racing.
If they could do it like golf, where you've got one racing here, and then when that drag race goes off, there's another crew that's got racing from somewhere else.
Yeah,
So it may not even be from that venue, but like
for
golf
sure,
goes from person to person to person.
for sure.
That might be something. And you're right
Yeah,
on the money about having some sort of streaming app that has all kinds of races on it.
and the thing is, and you'll see a bunch of the old timers, and I see both sides of I guess the spectrum because I'm kind of stuck in the middle between like the old style racing viewers and the new generation. But everything's going digital now,
Yes, it
and
is.
it's
You're not going to stop it. No, 100%.
no, if you want to keep racing alive, I mean, you
Yep.
want to get
You're
these
going to have
younger
to get up to speed.
generations and to be able
Yep.
to see it. You got to make it easily accessible for them
Yep.
because every kid has a phone now. So it's too easy just to pick up your phone, watch it just like you watch any NFL game, which is, I mean,
Yep.
that enormous sport. So yeah, they're always trying to find ways to improve it, and I get it on certain things, and like you'll see 10,000 commercials during a race, and it's very annoying.
Yep.
They got to earn money that way too. You got to
Yep.
understand that point of it, but there there's a way they can figure it out, and I don't really know why they haven't. It used to be on ESPN. I don't know what happened a long time
I
ago,
don't know.
but now it's on multiple different networks this coming year. It's I don't know. It's just
What they need to
I
do
wish they could
is
find an easier way to do it.
hire a couple of hire a couple of these young social media consultant kids and have them in the pits of some of these races and
And
just
I'm sure they've
throw up
got
some
it, but
TikToks or something like on the spot, man. And then that's just their job is like to
well,
film all these characters and things up there and get it up there and have people tuning in.
and the downside is also NASCAR made it so expensive for people to go to races. There'll be tickets that are more than NFL games half the time,
Wow.
and NFL that's different. You're going to sell out that like it's nothing, but it's a different crowd. It's a different
Yeah.
uh, it's different viewership when you go to these races. So, like Charlotte Motor Speedway is my home track, if you will, now. We used to go to the Coke 600. They used to hold over 100,000 people there. We used to pack the stands. Now they got
Yep.
rid of about half of those stands. It holds maybe 50,000 now, and they can't even sell 2/3 of it. So,
Wow.
and that's a shame. So, and it's all about this, the money, and
Yes, it is.
that's everything. But you're not going to get people to come to these races if you have those prices at $100, $200 a ticket. It's
Yeah,
just
that's a
not
lot.
going to happen.
Yeah, man, that's a lot. Yeah, they need to. Yeah, definitely step up social media game and yeah, get some people creating online content like each week, all the time. Get the younger generation coming in,
Yeah,
and
and I mean,
got to
and
stay up with it.
yeah, and I mean, if that drives people to go tune into what I've been talking about on a weekly basis, that's great
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
Um, and to kind of bounce on that, like I said, we break down all that stuff and we try to get it out there, but we're brutally honest. We don't script anything on our
Right.
podcast.
Yeah, I noticed that you guys just turn it
No,
on and you go,
yeah,
man.
and I wanted something to be as genuine as possible because you don't want the same run at the mill racing podcast or racing show that you see on all these other channels that they're
Right.
following literally a script. We wanted something different, and it's genuine. And the guests I've had on, I've had professional racers in the drag racing community, one of them, and they all really appreciate how genuine and unscripted everything is because they can be themselves. And
Yeah.
it's more of just a conversation, and we just bounce
Yeah.
back off of each other. And then when we feel like, well, that's probably about the end of it, we'll turn it off. And
Yeah.
it's worked really well. And we finished our first season, took the month of December off because in general racing is over until February, but we're kicking off the new year, and our season 2 coming up.
Yeah. I learned the racing season is almost the whole year long. Let's
It's long. It's
going
like
through your
hockey.
stuff, man. Yeah, it's a long season. I
Yes,
had no
and
idea, man.
yeah, it's dirt racing. That they have all sorts of different series. So right now they're
Yeah.
doing stuff out in Oklahoma. Right now it's the Tulsa Shootout, and they're called the USAC Midget Series, which is like a condensed version and no wing of the sprint cars.
Yeah.
To put it in simple terms, and they actually are having a chili bowl. It's called the Chili Bowl, and it's one of the dirt racings. Like you can almost consider it the Daytona 500 for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a humongous event. It's all an indoor facility in Oklahoma, so that's why we're
Wow.
actually kicking off our season 2 premiere because it actually starts the second week in January.
Sweet. That sounds like a lot of fun. So let's get into your show a bit. So first off, I got to compliment you on the theme music when it gets going for your podcast. Now, is that now like myself? I just found some free, copyright free
Yes.
kind of stuff. Did you do the same, or
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had somebody come up with some guitar licks for you?
No. No. I don't have a whole lot of friends that are musically inclined, if you
Yeah.
will. No. Yeah. On YouTube's studio creator portion of their channel, they have a plethora
Yes,
of
they sure do.
royalty
Yeah.
free music. Yeah. And I was like, let me pick something that gets people excited, and
That's
it's
right.
yeah. And
That's a good pick, man.
and I actually just edited a new intro for the new season. It's got clips of what I recorded at the track. So it's got it's got
Yeah.
drag
Yeah.
racing, it's got dirt racing, it's got that stuff, and I've just released what that intro looks like. So that'll actually be coming out whenever the season does start.
Nice. I can't wait to see that, man. So you mentioned your dad's on the show. Is he on every episode? Is it you and your dad like all the time?
Yeah, so he's actually, if you will, the co-host,
Yeah.
and he and I are pretty much one and the same. Our personalities are like exactly alike.
Yeah.
He's got just a wealth of knowledge
I
in
was about to
racing
say,
and
I'm sure he
specifically in the
does.
sprint car world. So it's really good for us to bounce off. So I primarily host it and I like bounce off of what he's saying. And we started off where I would just give a rundown of like the recap of all the racing action and kind of my opinions on that, and then I would bring him in later on for a segment. And I'm like, why don't we just have you on for the entire thing, and we can just bounce off of one another? Because I
Yeah.
think that's the best way when podcasts work the best is when you bounce off of somebody else.
Yes. Yep, you
And
got it.
so we both collaborate on it, and when we first started, I would send them questions and stuff like how to
Yeah.
preview this, and now we're just like, no, let's roll with it. And
Yeah.
it's gotten better each and every time. It's more comfortable that we've gotten. So, and we're about to do a live premiere show, which we haven't done yet.
Wow,
Besides in
fun.
person, but this will be
Yeah.
a new avenue that we're going to try to start off just
I love
on
it.
special occasions.
Yeah. That sounds awesome, man. Now, you mentioned before you've got a few guests on your show, and you've had quite a few guests. And so I'm not aware of how big of guests that you've had. But you've had quite a lot of racing people on your show. How do you
Yes.
go about landing people in the racing field to come on your show?
So a lot of it goes. Well, the first guest I had was my grandpa,
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. That's why I started everything.
Yeah, I listened to a
And
little bit of that one too.
he's got a lot of stories. And for anybody that is a racing buff, is into the history of racing, he is tremendous on how much he knows.
Yeah.
And he mentions it towards the end of it. He's like, I'm sorry, I couldn't remember a lot of stuff. I'm like, couldn't remember. You're giving me
Yeah.
specifics from like 1952. No, you were doing
Yeah.
good. No, and over the years when growing up and with my dad knowing a lot of people in the racing community, he knew racers, and social media is really easy to get in touch with people.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
And so, guests we've had on, one of them, his name's Lance DeWeese. He's actually coming on to the live show as well. He raced for the crew that my grandfather still actually mechanics for, and he's in the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame as well. So one of the best to ever do it. Great guy. He actually occasionally runs over at Millbridge Speedway in North Carolina with his son. So I got to talk to him every so often as well. An ARCA driver he's actually coming on, so kind of like getting into the season 2 premiere. My guest coming on, but Caleb Costner, he is a former law enforcement officer. Was able to touch bases with him. He's getting into the ARCA racing, which ARCA is, you could almost consider like the USFL of football, of the NFL, college football type thing. It's
Right.
the prequel before you get up into the big leagues, and
Gotcha.
he's working his way up. Great guy, love what he's doing. Small team, so he's awesome to have on the show. I had a NHRA pro stock motorcycle driver, Gianna Evaristo. She came on the show after I got to meet her in person, and all it takes, you just ask somebody, what's the worst they can say? No.
You just got to
And
ask. I do a lot of
she
that
was
myself.
very awesome to come on, and it was a pleasure having her on. Looking forward to hopefully having her on in the near future too. And just all sorts of guests. And if people want to go check out the show, there's so many different guest interviews I've had on, whether it's in the dirt racing world, the drag racing world, NASCAR world. It's I like to have anybody I can that is involved with racing. It makes it for a unique podcast, and hopefully it's interesting to people everywhere, not just racing buffs, but everyone.
All right. So, who's some of your dream guests? Who do you think you would like big guests you'd like to try to land?
Well, anytime I can try to get a NASCAR champion, that would be amazing. The driver that I became my favorite after Dale Jr. retired is Kyle Larson, because of his whole dirt racing background. So that's one for sure I would love to have on the show. Hopefully one day it'll happen where he comes across it and is like, oh yeah, I'll come on or something. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Darren Hurt Jr., of course, that would be amazing. He grew up in the same. He went to the same high school that I did, not the same time, but I graduated the same high school that he graduated from. So and obviously was humongous fan of his until he retired. So yeah, those are definitely big guests I would love to have
Yes,
on.
yeah. Sounds yeah. I hope you do get to land a few of those people too. So your YouTube channel, you mentioned that a couple times. That is kind of a growing little channel when I was looking at it. Each little video starting to get a little more traction,
Yep.
one after the other. What kind of big plans do you have for your YouTube channel this upcoming season?
So originally the YouTube channel was just my horsepower talk because that's the only thing I did, and I was like, how can I help possibly expand this channel and bring more audiences into it and get to a point where you can eventually monetize, because obviously it's just a
Yeah,
hobby
yeah,
right now, and then the goal for anybody, you want to have goals of anything, and it's to possibly get it monetized and maybe sponsors. So I'm
right.
like, well, what else can I what do I know how to do? Well, I know how to play video games, and so I do select gaming. So I put a separate um, podcast, if you will, gaming portion on the YouTube channel. It's called ZB Gaming.
Yeah,
So that brings in a different audience as well. And I do anything from sim racing to simple games like Madden or anything like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I'm like, what else could I do? And so um, it was in the summer. I was like, what could I possibly get into? And what sport is really popular coming up? Well, the National Football League is very, very popular. I have a background in football. I played collegiate football my freshman year in college, so I know a couple different sports, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I can talk about those. And so I rebranded the YouTube channel to ZB Media Productions,
right.
and it has all of its separate podcasts now with ZB's Horsepower Talk, which is still my main focus.
Yeah,
That's the one that started everything. ZB's Touchdown Talk, which I is actually becoming more of a almost like a previewing games and like almost a
yeah.
sports betting thing, because I've actually been fortunate. I've had a partner slash sponsor come on
Nice.
um, that's in the sports betting community, and
Yeah,
they kind
yeah.
of wanted to really get into it for the racing portion, because not a lot of people know that NASCAR has sports betting stuff, so they kind of wanted to get that
Ah,
out
no,
there.
I didn't either. Yeah,
So shout out to them. That's they're called Bet Stamp. So big shout out to them for helping out in there, and trying to get the word out there too.
yeah,
Yeah, and then ZB Gaming is on there as well. So and every Monday I do it's called Meme Monday. So I send some sort of little short on YouTube to send it out
yeah.
there. Hopefully it has some humor for people to open up on their Monday morning, because Mondays suck,
Right.
and just to get their week started off right.
Yeah, man. I love it. Yeah, as much as you can do as possible is always good to get the word out.
For sure.
So I had a couple, I was thinking, watching some of your clips, I had a couple suggestions, if you don't mind, on the
For sure.
channel, is to take a non-racing fan to an event and just to a race and get their like reactions of certain things. Somebody doesn't know anything about it, or uh, let's see. And another one I was thinking might be fun to do is to somebody that doesn't know anything about racing. If you get a chance to go into the pits at all, is to see their reaction. Because I remember as a kid, I was like, "What is this world I've walked into, man?" It was awesome. I was like enthralled with it. My dad was just like, "Oh, got to get you out of here, son."
Yes. Um, Next time I'm actually at the track, I brought my son. He's 5. I brought him to a race at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I didn't record him, which I probably should have,
Yeah,
but I was really there for him to see the experience and see what he was. But to see his reaction to all these cars, I mean, he was like, "Whoa, this is
yeah,
awesome." And he's like, "We're going to the big track." I'm like, "Yeah." And Charlotte Motor Speedway, it's got a big TV too, so the
yeah,
kids are
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Whoa, that's crazy." I could definitely drag my wife to, because she does not like racing at all.
Yes.
And I wish when I was 8-9 years ago, I took her to her first dirt track race, and to see her
Yeah.
reaction then, it was actually she was like, "Wow, this is pretty cool. It's not boring at
Yeah.
all."
No,
Because
it's
she's
not
with
bored at
the
all.
mainstream people. Yeah, she's in the line of the mainstream people. They're like, "Oh, they're just turning left." I'm like, "Oh no, there's so much
Yeah.
more when you're actually there."
Yeah, like when you watch NASCAR, you really can just watch cars go in a circle for a good amount of time, right? But you go to a dirt track, man, no, you're going to get excitement
And any
pretty quickly.
in-person race, whether it is NASCAR, drag racing, dirt racing, IndyCar, it is completely different than what you see on TV, because you
Yeah,
literally feel the power of the cars. And
right, right,
it's just
right.
like any live sporting event. Like baseball, I will fall asleep in a baseball game watching on TV in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I go to a baseball game. That's a lot of fun. That's a lot different.
My daughter's waving at me. Yeah, man. All right. Uh, so let's get to some fun questions for you, man. What was your first ever racing event that you can remember?
That I remember, because
Yeah, yeah,
I know I went to plenty when I was a baby.
yeah,
Uh, I'm trying to go back in the. It's probably the one where. So we were race. We had a car. My dad was the crew chief on a car. He had two cars. There's two different styles. So in like NASCAR, there's the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. It's like the less horsepower cars and the slower cars, and then you got the beasts of the
right,
Cup Series. Well, in dirt racing, the sprint car world, it's called the 358s, which is just a 358 cubic inch engine. Uh, and then you have the 410s, which is the same thing,
right, right.
410 cubic inch engine. And he had two different cars there. And the one car he had um, was racing the 358s, and all these tracks, they always do something to interact with the fans. And this particular day, I think I might have been 8 years old, maybe. They were throwing out
Yeah,
mugs, and on the bottom of the koozies, little koozies, they
yeah,
threw out koozies to everybody. On the bottom of the koozies, that had numbers on them, and I had number one. Well, um, that means whoever was starting on the pole started in first and won the
yeah.
race. I would win $100.
Right.
Well, the driver for my dad, he started second. So it was like my first like conundrum. Like, I don't know what I want. Well,
Right.
lo and behold, the car that started first ended up winning, and I
I
won a
mean,
hundred dollars. And
there
I'm a
you
kid.
go.
And I'm like,
Right.
what is going on? So and I go down to the victory lane, and the announcer's there and everything. He's like, "Hey, how's it feel about this?" I'm like, "I mean, it's cool, but we lost."
Right.
So that's probably the first. I think I might have been 7, 8 years old or something, and
Yeah, yeah.
it was. I still remember to this day. It was pretty funny.
Who's the most famous racing person you've ever met?
My grandpa.
Your grandpa?
If you're in
Yeah.
the dirt racing, and I don't really, for me, it's just my grandpa. Like I don't think
Yeah, yeah.
anything of it until you realize how many people know who this guy is and how much of an impact he's had on the dirt racing world. And he's very humble too, and he doesn't like to talk about it. But as long as he's done it, I mean, there's drivers like Tony Stewart that have so much respect for him, and
Yeah.
I know people have heard of Tony Stewart, so to hear it from him, um, yeah, I mean, literally anybody in that's done racing or any part of even dirt racing, they will know who my grandpa is, and it's Davy Brown for anybody that was wondering. Um, and yeah, just as long as he's done it, he's made such an impact in that sport. I can't I can't put anybody in
Yeah.
front of him that I've met
Right.
that's
Well,
more famous than him.
that's a pretty good name to use, man.
Yeah.
What's the biggest race you've ever attended?
Um, I've attended the Coca Cola 600 a few times, which is the longest race by like mileage for NASCAR.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to get to the Daytona 500. Haven't been able to make that happen yet. Talladega, I would probably put up there with one of the bigger races that I've been to. That's
Yeah.
an
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible
Yeah.
racetrack, largest racetrack for NASCAR. And well, this year, and we'll talk about it on the podcast definitely on the live premiere. But my dad and I will be going to the Indianapolis 500 in May this year, and that's been
Sweet.
a bucket list for us for a long,
Yeah, I
long
bet
time.
so.
And so we are excited beyond words for that. As that was actually his Christmas present, so he
Wow.
was thrown off quite a bit there. We talked
Yeah.
about it, and I eventually pulled the trigger to get him those tickets. So yeah,
Yeah.
every day he's been texting me, "Hey, we need to do this, do that." So for now, probably Talladega, but yeah, coming
Yeah.
up, it's going to be
The
Indianapolis
Indy
500, and
500.
that'll take it
Yeah, man.
by
Well, keep
forever,
putting in the
probably.
good work, man, and next year you may not have to spring for tickets. They may be
Yeah, maybe
maybe a
I'll get
pair set
credentials,
for you.
and yeah, maybe I'll
Yeah.
get credentials for the track and stuff.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right, man.
yeah,
Uh
it's a lot of fun. And like I said, do it as a hobby, and it's I talk about racing with my dad anyway, so why not have people watch us do it?
yeah, and going back to your grandfather, I googled his name real quick. And so it says Davy Brown Sr. They call him the best wrench man sprint car racing has ever had.
Yep, and that's a tribute page on Facebook that my dad helped create. Somebody made it before, made a page before, and became so much of a spam page because nobody actually monitored it. So my dad put it on himself to monitor a page where people just send pictures of
Yeah.
old memories of him. And it's really cool to see all those black and white photos from the 60s and everything with him working on cars. The things you don't usually get to see out of him. But
Yeah.
if anybody tunes into that, if anybody tunes in anything on the podcast, please tune into that. You can call it an interview. It's just a conversation I have with my
Yeah.
grandpa, and just to hear how much he knows, how much he's done, and he's still coming up on 90
Yeah.
years old, working on cars, and they're still winning. It's
Yeah.
just incredible. He's going to do it until the day he dies. I mean, quite literally.
Uh,
I mean, this is his whole life.
yeah. All right. So, what have you yourself ever had any close encounters at a race? Because I've only
Like
been
almost
to a
getting run
couple.
over.
Or yeah, just because I only went to one, and right there, the one dirt track race I went to, I don't know how many times I saw somebody almost get injured.
Yeah,
It was
it's
all over the place.
yeah, it happens. Um, if you get hit, it's fine. Shake it off, walk away. It's
Yeah,
I yeah. If you've been in any pit area, especially dirt racing, you're going to be getting close calls all the time. Yeah, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. More
What's
prevalent in the dirt tracks than NASCAR
yeah,
because NASCAR has a lot more rules and regulations where you
yes,
can
I'm
and
sure. I
can't
bet
walk.
so.
So it's a lot easier to not get run over in NASCAR, and yeah, a lot
You
easier to
still see it
get.
though, man. When they see
Yeah,
people coming in,
yeah,
pulling in, sometimes they're there in a split second.
yeah.
It's crazy how on time they are.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
very chaotic, but they are professionals in that series, so
yes, they are.
they
Uh,
practice every single day.
What's the worst and best food you've had at a racetrack?
Worst. Uh, I'm not a picky eater, so I mean,
No.
probably the best. And gosh, this makes me hungry right now. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, we had a thing at Williams Grove, the track I was talking about earlier,
Yeah.
they might still have it there. And it's one of the simplest things you can ever do, but it is so delicious. It's a it's an ice cream sandwich, but it's ice cream smashed between two waffles. It is
Yeah.
so fantastic, and it's so
Uh,
simple.
right.
Yeah, I would probably put that up there with one of the best foods. I don't know if they
Uh,
still do it, but gosh, that's so good. Um, I don't know what a worst would probably just be just like basic chicken tenders you can get, but they also
yeah.
cost like $25. So
Right.
just
And they're just
because of the
cardboard.
price, that makes it the worst.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that would
Uh,
yeah. something like that.
What's your favorite piece of racing nostalgia that you have at your house?
I'm trying to look around. Uh, well, I'm actually not. It's not even specifically racing nostalgia that I have, but I got it at a racetrack. So for anybody that doesn't know or hasn't tuned in to my show, and I don't talk about it often, but I'm a police officer in North Carolina, and we get to work a lot of off-duty assignments at racetracks. And I was actually able, and it's actually in my office at the police department. But I was given a as a challenge coin from former Los Angeles Police Department um, helicopter unit guy, and it's just because I got that at the track, I thought that was really really cool,
Yeah,
and and you don't see that type of challenge coin ever, especially on this side on the East Coast.
right,
So it's not specific to racing, but getting it at the track, I kind of consider that a little
right, right,
bit,
right.
and that's really cool. And no, not a whole lot of people have that, so that's up there for just what I've gotten before from a track. I don't have a. It's surprisingly, I actually don't have a whole heck of a lot of stuff. My son got more of the like the little race cars and stuff that we'll
Yeah,
get from the track, and um, I've got like Kyle Larson championship hat. That's probably my most worn hat because
yeah,
I got you get excited when your favorite driver or team wins at your
right.
sport. So you press pay right away when they won the championship. There's that, and I've got and any race fan you and any race fans that might be tuning in, check your drawer, your clothing drawer, because you probably have at least 4 or 5 different T-shirts of your favorite race car driver because
Yeah,
that's like required. So
yes.
I've got that too.
All right, man. So at the end of each one of my shows, I ask everybody the same kind of 6 questions,
All right.
and kind of interesting to see how similar or different people's react or answers are. All
Oh
right,
man.
number one, what's your favorite smell?
Ooh, that's a good one. Probably fresh baked brownies.
Yeah, that's a good one. What's your favorite kind of sandwich?
I'm gonna go simple. Probably ham and cheese, but you have to have a nice shredded lettuce on it. Make it a
Yeah,
little crunch on
oh,
it.
that's a good one. What's your favorite kind of drink?
Uh, Alcoholic beer. Uh, probably Sun Drop, or you dropped that a little earlier. Cheer wine's pretty
Yeah,
good stuff too.
cheer wine. Yeah, that's my favorite kind of soda. If you talk about beer, it's usually the lighter the better for me. I don't like heavy stuff.
Yeah.
I like a good Corona or Jimmy
Oh,
Buffett's Land
see
Shark
when
is
you say
good.
Corona, that gives everybody PTSD here. So you want to be easy
Oh,
with
that's
that word.
true. That's true. Yeah, I bet they were hating the name of that thing when that came out. uh, um, what makes you happy every single time it happens?
Getting home from work and seeing my family and seeing the smile on my kids'
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
faces.
yeah. That's a great one.
Yep.
If you could give give yourself advice as a kid, what little bit of advice would you give yourself?
Be patient. Um, Things tend to work themselves out. Don't jump to conclusions on things. Don't do anything you might regret. And just be patient and let things work themselves out because they generally do.
Man, everybody says patience. Man, almost everybody does. Yeah, slow down. Just everything will be
Yep.
fine. What is one of the most beautiful things you have ever seen?
Well, let's name drop. We're just so I get some brownie points here.
All
My
right,
wife,
that's right.
um, separate from humans and stuff. Where I live is very remote, and I didn't appreciate it until now. But it's when it's clear skies and there's no light pollution. It's probably just all the stars that light up, and it's
Oh yeah,
absolutely amazing to see.
yeah. That's something else when you get a good open sky, man, and all those stars fill it.
Yes.
That's a good one. Good, definitely a good one to do. And the last question is just self-staining for me. Who do you think would be a good guest to be on this podcast? Who has been doing something for a long time, other than your grandfather?
For my
uh,
podcast or for your
no,
podcast?
for my podcast. Who do you think? What would be somebody you know that's been doing something for a really long time? That'd be good to come on the show.
Oh, does that have to be a famous person?
No, mm-mm, not at
Um,
all. I specialize in non-famous people.
I've got a good friend of mine, and I'm still guilty of doing this too. Um, he was the best man at my wedding, so I'll name drop him. Garrett. He uh, he and I throughout college we would kind of go back into our nostalgia and playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
And we still will keep up with it now and then, and also keeping up with Pokemon too. Yes, we're
yeah.
30. It's okay
No, it's
because
completely fine.
it makes us enjoy our days and
That's right.
and kind of keep our mind off of things. Um, I mean, I don't know how much he would be on the podcast, but he definitely has a lot of childhood things he still does. So same with me. I mean,
Yeah,
um, but with
we're all,
me, I'm kind of and his excuse too. We show it to my son and get him into
yeah.
it and show him how to
Well, that's
do all
right. I
that.
mean, everybody needs something to do after they get off of their job or whatever to de-stress. I've got a whole ton of Legos behind me and
Yeah,
Legos I'm working on, and everybody's
my
got their thing, man, that they do.
well, real quick, my brother, he's a second lieutenant in the army, and he legitimately asked for Legos for Christmas, so he's got some Lego
That's
kits
right.
now. So if that tells you anything, yeah,
I did
actually that might be a
Leg
good guess too, my brother.
Yeah, and I did a podcast with a buddy of mine who's also does a lot of Legos, and he's a police officer down in not in Wilmington, North Carolina, but near about
Around there,
Wilmington,
yeah,
and he's like a trainer of sorts.
yeah,
I'm not exactly sure what his job is, but he does run all the people through gun safety training or something like that over there. He's
right,
one of those people, but he's a big Lego head too, so we talked all about that as well.
yeah.
All right, so Garrett, and your name's been dropped, man. I might have to hit you up as soon as I get your contact info, man. You can give me all the dirt on Zach back in the day.
Oh
All right,
gosh, yeah.
so this wraps us up for the show. Zach, thanks for coming on. It's taken a little bit to get us in touch. We've uh, uh, had a hot water heater that put us on the back burner a little bit.
It happens. That's
Yeah, man.
life.
So thanks for coming on the show. Remember, folks, find what makes you happy and get to it. There's a lot of life out there to live, so make it a good one. Be kind, be nice, be good, and everyone have a good week.
Thank you, Matt.